D&D, the world's greatest role-playing game. I've been playing for years now, and nothing gets me more excited than making a badass character or monster. And video games and anime provide the perfect inspiration for this. I mean, look at this stuff. But then you look at the game, and what you get is something like 4 Elements Monk?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Seriously, what am I even supposed to do with this? 4 key points for Burning Hands? Come on!
We'll have to make some major changes around here.
Welcome to the table. My name is Ian, and this is Incendium D&D. Today, we're gonna hack Dungeons & Dragons. Warning. SCPs are horrific, often graphic pieces of fiction that may make some viewers uncomfortable with their content. This video contains descriptions and implications of ritualistic abuse and prolonged death scenes. Please proceed with caution and enjoy. Item number: SCP-668. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. As of data expunged, no special containment procedures aside from the standard security are required. SCP-668 is to be transferred to a locked safe deposit box at Site-19's high-value items storage facility. Standard defenses against intrusion, explosive, chemical, biological, and memetic, are to be in place at all times, according to standard operating procedure. SCP-668 may only be removed from its safe deposit box by personnel with security clearance level 2 or higher. Individuals wishing to make use of SCP-668 outside of Site-19 must first submit a Form 668 requested course of action form to 0511 and be fitted with an explosive kill switch collar on a 24-hour timer before taking SCP-668 into the field. An auditing officer with security clearance 4 or higher must confirm that SCP-668 has been returned to its safe deposit box before the collar is deactivated. Hello everyone! Welcome back to D&D Hacks, our homebrew series here on Incendium RPGs. Last time, we created a stat block for SCP-538, the Shadow Spiders, to use at our table. If you haven't seen it yet, you should go check it out. But be wary if you have any sort of arachnophobia. As I've been going through this series, there's something I want you guys to keep in mind. These creatures are meant primarily to give inspiration to you for your games. We've been spending a lot of time establishing lore about these creatures and objects, so look at them as individuals, not part of a greater whole. This means that you don't have to use all of these SCPs in a single setting or game, unless I guess if you have a foundation in your world. For those of you who are new to the SCP universe in general, here's what you missed. If you're already familiar with it, skip to the timestamp on the screen now, or click it in the description below. Dating back to 2007, the Creative Commons universe of the SCP Foundation catalogs a multitude of monsters, items, and phenomena which pose variable threats to human society. These anomalous objects are designated as SCPs and given a number which represents the order in which they were found. They can range from dangerous to adorable, and are classified in terms of difficulty to contain. Their powers consist of reality distortion to the indestructibility to being the literal embodiment of happiness, and the secret global organization only known as the Foundation has taken up the daunting task of protecting our world from them by any means necessary. Think Illuminati, but modern and scientific, rather than mystic and arcane. Thousands of tragedies have been stopped thanks to their work, but as more and more SCPs are discovered, end-of-the-world scenarios are never far. Dungeons & Dragons is a TTRPG in which you can do anything. You can work alongside your players to design a game for everyone to enjoy, and as the DM, you get to make decisions on what kinds of NPCs, monsters, and gods appear in your world. SCPs make for some amazing inspiration. Generally, they fit in the context of horror or mystery best, but they can be comedic or tragic as well. The sheer anomalousness of these creatures leaves room for a whole new world of storytelling at the table. A statue that breaks your neck in the blink of an eye. An old man with a pocket dimension full of death traps. a hard-to-destroy reptile with a penchant for hatred. With a roster like this, it can be difficult to bring faithful adaptations from the SCP universe into our campaigns. But all of that ends today, because we're going to be bringing yet another SCP into 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Before we get into the rest of the video, it's time for the subscriber roll-off. I'm going to be rolling a persuasion check with my d20 here, and you're going to roll a d20 against it to set the DC. Today, I'm using my standard yellow plastic die. This is the die that... Unfortunately, it seems to me that if you only get one set of mystery dice, then they tend to be these yellow, very nondescript plastic things that don't look very fun at all, compared to what we're normally used to with the other colors. Ah, a 4. Well, if you beat that die, we'll catch you in the next one. If you got lower than a 4, then welcome to the channel. If there's an SCP that you want me to cover and turn into a Dungeons & Dragons stat block, please let me know in the comments below. I'm currently working on Series 1 and 2, and all options are being considered. SCP-668, sometimes called the Blade of Genovese, is a simple chef's knife with a rosewood handle and full tang construction. It's believed that it was made sometime in the 30s or 40s, acquired by the SCP Foundation in the 1960s during a criminal investigation. A woman living alone in New York was allegedly brutalized and murdered for over 6 hours, during which time 38 witnesses reported to be able to hear the attack. None stepped in to save her, however, until her eventual death. Currently, the Foundation is speculating whether the knife had its abnormal properties beforehand, or whether it gained them as a result of the event. SCP-668's current properties are most terrifying indeed. Whenever it is carried by a human or humanoid entity with violent intent, the knife begins to broadcast what's come to be known as an apathy field. All sentient creatures with a psionic resistance index, PSI, of 97 or lower are incapable of assisting the intended victims. They experience a sudden wave of apathy while under the object's influence. However, sensory input is not affected, and emotional capacity is still within expected parameters. The affected individuals simply cannot act, even indirectly, in a way that would assist the victim, and the victim is incapable of defending itself against their attacker. There appears to be no upper limit to how many people can be affected in this way, which leads to Incident Report 668A. I will summarize this report, but I highly recommend reading it yourself in the description below. On a redacted date, police responded to reports of a man attacking and killing bystanders with a large chef's knife at a local mall. Upon arrival, the officers discovered 15 casualties, most of whom had been ritually cleansed in a manner described by the witnesses as horrific. Officers discovered the suspect, an escaped serial killer, henceforth referred to as suspect. Officers ordered suspect to cease and desist. Suspect did not comply. Officers then attempted to fire upon suspect, but discovered they were unable to pull the trigger. Officers then attempted to flee, but found themselves unable to do so after the suspect declared his intention to murder every last one of you mother pigs. Suspect then proceeded, ending with Cynthia Wallace, a Foundation operative embedded as an observer. Despite being under severe psychic assault, Officer Wallace, a pseudonym, managed to activate her emergency transponder located in her belt, alerting the Foundation of the situation. Mobile Task Force Pi-1, City Slickers, arrived on the scene, disguised as FBI Special Anti-Terrorist Task Force. Task Force members discovered suspect. The police officers' bodies were found suspended from the third-floor railing, skin flensed and arranged in the form of wings, entrails removed and trailing to the floor. Officer Wallace's body was found, data expunged. SCP operatives then attempted to terminate suspect, only to discover that they too were unable to fire their weapons. Team leader transmitted a Class 1 Type 73 mimetic attack alert to command, and ordered the team to withdraw. This order failed when suspect stated his intention to find out what all your insides look like, rendering them helpless to escape. Involved task force members were subsequently remote terminated using surgically installed cranial detonators according to standard field protocol following psychic compromise in a field agent. Command elements then authorized escalation of force to Tier 2, severe collateral damage. Aerial bombardment was attempted, but failed when the pilots were unable to release their payload over the target. It was thus determined that the psychic field that prevents hostile intent towards subject may have an infinite range. Escalation of force to Tier 3 was considered, but delayed while Dr. Gears suggested an alternate strategy with a higher chance to retrieve the item intact. Hypothesizing that hostile intent was required for the psychic controls to trigger, Dr. Gears suggested using Class D personnel under mind control by SCP-661. The operation was a success. By utilizing multiple personnel, none of whom were aware of the significance of their actions, none of the personnel knew their actions were related to terminating the subject, and were thus able to act freely. Following confirmation of capture, Command ordered Tier 3 nuclear detonation elements to stand down from Ready 5 status and declared the incident contained. A cover story blaming the attack on terrorists was formulated and disseminated to the public. It is further noted that the obsessive nature of the subject's method of killing may have contributed to the success of this operation. Subject carried out its killings in a ritualistic manner, maximizing the amount of horror, pain, and suffering inflicted on its victims. For this reason, Foundation personnel were able to keep him contained within a closed area, the mall, and formulate a plan of action. Should the subject have made his decision to leave the mall and continue his killing spree elsewhere, immediate Tier 3 response by double-blind operator would have been the only possible method of containing the incident. Quite the tale, isn't it? This is the kind of stuff that really gets me excited to make these videos. SCPs are horrifying, anomalous, and complex problems that the Foundation often barely manages to contain. These are the kinds of feelings that I want my players to have when playing at the table. Unlike some of my other entries in this series, this part of the video will likely be the shortest. With an SCP like this one, I want to keep things simple while maintaining true to the spirit of the object. Therefore, this item will be an artifact-level magic item, requiring attunement. There's only one of them in the world, and its effects read as follows. Apathy Field. While attuned to this item, all creatures within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw or become frightened. While frightened in this way, a creature is incapacitated and its speed is 0. A frightened creature may attempt the saving throw again at the end of each of its turns. This effect may seem much weaker than the original SCP object, though. After all, wasn't its range supposed to be infinite? And in a way, this is true, as any player character outside the 30-foot range would be able to cast spells or fire arrows at the wielder. However, in ideal conditions, the wielder would choose a more opportune place to fight. For example, a small tavern or a house, confining his victims and bystanders to deadly close quarters. And of course, there's the secondary effect for the victim. In addition, you can select up to one creature frightened in this way. The target loses the frightened condition, but instead is subjected to the following effects. The target's speed is halved, and it cannot willingly leave your line of sight. The target has disadvantage on attacks against you, and you have advantage on attacks against the target. After taking damage from SCP-668, their current hit points are reduced by 4d6 at the start of each of their turns for 1 minute. Proficiency with a dagger allows you to add your proficiency bonus to the damage roll for any attack you make with it. This effect allows the wielder to isolate an opponent, marking them as their victim. Similar to the frightened condition, the victim has disadvantage against the attacker and advantage on attacks made against them. By reducing their current hit points by 4d6 at the start of each of their turns, the target is essentially bleeding out over time. But my favorite part of this effect is that the target is not able to willingly leave line of sight. This enhances the hopelessness of the situation, especially if you, as the GM, describe the creeping paranoia and fear entering the victim's mind. And that's it. The Blade of Genovese is done. I imagine the party encountering this item in the hands of an NPC, and that encounter going something like this. There's been a string of murders in town for the last few weeks. Humans, in particular, their bodies brutalized and ritually cleansed. No defensive wounds, nothing that indicates they fought back. Could it be someone they all knew? None of the victims seem to share a commonality between them. One of your teammates knows a little divination magic, though, and You figured out where the killer will strike next. You arrive at the worn-down hovel of a home. There's no noise, no screaming, nor sounds of protest. The rogue enters first to investigate. Minutes pass, and she doesn't come back. Seems like the quiet option is out, so the rest of your party barges through the doors. The house has a single empty room, but a hatch that leads down to the basement. Taking the steps two at a time, you land in the middle of a gruesome scene. An elderly man's body is on the floor. The rogue seems frozen in place, as though stunned. In front of her, a diabolical grin plays on the lips of a red-skinned demon, holding a blade but a few inches from the rogue's neck. "Ah, so you do have friends after all," his broken voice whispers, and you feel a sudden wave of nausea as something tries to brute force its way into your mind. You try to move, but your hands feel heavy. You try to call out, but the most you can manage is a grunt. The demon's blade, a simple chef's knife, gleams with wicked magic. "Let us begin, then," the creature says. Thank you again for joining me on this installment of D&D Hacks. None of this would be possible without the contributors to the SCP Wiki, so you should definitely go check it out in the link below. If you're looking for more like this, don't forget to let YouTube know by pressing like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below telling me what you think of this particular SCP. SCP objects are often horrifying, unkillable creatures with inexplicable abilities. Maintaining the balance of the game while keeping true to their nature and theme is an incredible challenge for any dungeon master, but I think they can still serve as great inspiration for encounters, and as long as we combine their unique features while weighing out the rest of the stat block, you and your party are guaranteed to have a great time against them. I hope you enjoyed my take on SCP-668, the Blade of Genovese. Happy hunting, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.